We'll get to more phone calls coming up. 877-3DP-SHOW. Email address dp@danpatrick.com. Tim Legler, one of the great shooters in NBA history, on the call for Celtics Magic on Friday, as well as the Knicks and the Pistons Game 4. And he has a podcast, All City NBA Podcast. We'll talk about that in a moment. Legs, good to talk to you. Before you knew the end result, if I would have told you the Lakers will not substitute in the second half of the Minnesota game, they will play their starting five, and nobody else will come in on the road after they had, one day of rest in between games 3 and 4, you would have said what?
No shot of winning the game. Because if you told me, first of all, if you tell me something like that, I would say, well, that's not going to happen. It's impossible. It's never happened. I've never heard of such a thing. That would have been my first answer. So this is a crazy hypothetical you're throwing at me. But if then I thought to myself, well, maybe this could happen, I would think they must be in dire straits. There has to be some reason why you'd be pushed to an extreme measure like that. And anyway, you slice it, against a team as good defensively as Minnesota is capable of being, to think you got 5 guys play 24 straight minutes, no physical break, no mental break, it's just not a formula for success. I think there's a lot of criticism coming J.J. Redick's way. I think a lot of it is justified. It's not just the substitution patterns either. I have a lot of problems with that. The design of that inbounds play late where LeBron turned the ball over. I don't understand what they were trying to accomplish by the design of the play, the spacing of the play, and then just a terrible decision by LeBron to throw it to the wrong hand for Luca. But so I think there's a lot of criticism that's levied against J.J. Redick right now, and if they don't come back and win this series, I think he's going to be dealing with that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the mistakes they made. They blew a 13-point lead. Minnesota's at home. That's a young team. Any team that has Anthony Edwards, is not going to stop. And some of these mistakes, LeBron takes a really deep three. That, to me, was a bad shot. Even if he makes it, it's still not a high percentage. The inbounds pass is lazy. Then, he commits the foul on Anthony Edwards. To me, a lot of that, and that Luca is not 100%, but you're not bringing any of those guys out. And you still had a chance to win. I don't think that Austin Reeves was ready to take that shot in the corner. But, the margin of victory and defeat at this time of the year, I was just surprised at how the Lakers played down the stretch.
Dan, listen, you could go right now anywhere in the country and watch a middle school basketball game where the 5 starters are infinitely better than the kids on the bench, and they're going to sub. This is a situation with NBA players, millions and millions of dollars committed in salary to the guys that are wearing Lakers uniforms sitting there, and you can't go to any of those guys. An entire second half of a playoff game with really your season on the brink. Now, I'm not going to completely write them off because they've got Luca and LeBron. Let's face it, at the end of the day, they've got 2 of the most special players in the league. So this is one situation where 3-1, I'm not ready to put this to bed yet. I think they go home and win game 5. And now you're getting to a situation, can you win a road game to force that game 7 back in your place? I don't know. But to think that you couldn't have the faith or confidence to go to anyone else on your roster besides those 5 guys, it's really mind-boggling to me. And does it play into the decision-making? Possibly. Does it play into that 3 you mentioned by LeBron? I'm glad you brought it up because I should have. I was remiss in not mentioning that too. That's a horrible shot. You're 7 seconds on the shot clock. Yeah. He takes a 30-foot 3, and if you watch the possession, nobody moved. There was not a single cut, screen, no action whatsoever. They came down, held the ball for a little bit, swung it to LeBron, and he just pulled it. After he had played 23 consecutive minutes, and look, he's better from the 3 than he's ever been. That shot was Steph Curry range. That's not his wheelhouse. So was that a fatigue thing, physically, mentally? Possibly. The inbounds play, like I said, the construct of the play was terrible. 3 guys breaking to the ball within 10 feet of each other with their defender. So you got 6 bodies within 10 feet of each other, all coming to the corner of this by the sideline where the half court acts as another barrier if you catch it in the front court. Now, they could have run someone into the back court. That would have been nice. Or at least have one guy breaking to the ball so he's got an opportunity to just push off and catch it. it was so congested. And then LeBron makes a terrible decision. The pass has to go to Luca's left hand. Jade McDaniels is on Luca's right side. He's hedging him over there, and LeBron throws it to that side. So is that a mental fatigue? He's too good a player. He's too smart to make that mistake. So I don't know what all played into it, but you can't tell me that it couldn't have factored in when those guys hadn't had a break physically or mentally for an entire half of a must-win game. That's shocking to me.
What did you see on that last play with the Pistons and the Knicks with Hardaway Jr.?
My vantage point calling the game, Dan, was tough because it was across the court all the way in the corner to my right, all the way across the court with a lot of bodies over there. So the shot goes off, and we couldn't see it until we saw the replay. Once I saw the replay, I believe I said on the air, my last comment on it was, there's no doubt shooters typically are going to get that call. But then I went on to say, but at the same time, there was almost nothing called in the second half of that game on shooters. Very little. I mean, the third quarter of that game, I made a joke that you would have a hard time convincing me that Navy SEAL training was more arduous than getting to the rim in the third quarter of that game, because there was nothing. It was play on. By the way, I love it. I mean, that was the 90s was when I played. I love that style of basketball. Now, here's the thing, though. On the shooter from a 24-foot shot, that guy's got to be protected more than a driver. And so to get bumped on your shooting side, absolutely enough to make the shot unmakeable, and should have been called. And as you can see, the officials immediately said it. They didn't even wait for the 2-minute report. They said it once they got to the locker room and saw the play, because they wanted to immediately put it out there. We blew it. Now, that doesn't help Pistons fans, because you'd have a 2-2 series going back to New York, and the Pistons have played very well in Madison Square Garden in this series.
Talking to Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, former NBA player. When you won the three-point shooting contest, Larry Bird, was he out of the NBA?
Yes, he was.
Okay. How do you think you would have done against Bird?
Well, I hate to say it, but if Larry Bird walked in the locker room and guaranteed a victory in that competition, and I was sitting in the locker room, I probably would have had something to say back to him. Listen, I think everybody that participates.
Are you sure you would have said something at the time to Larry Bird?
Probably not. He was my child. He was my idol in high school, college. So probably, you're probably right. No, but it may have made me. It may have made me even more, because of how badly, how much better the story would have been then. I was just so happy to win it and know that my name was going to go on a list with that guy, like of guys that had won the competition. So, yeah, but like, I think anybody that's participated in that probably believes that they would beat anybody that's ever done it.
How many teams can win the title?
Well, I said going in to the postseason, or not the postseason, with about a month to go, I said one of these three teams is winning a title, and you're not going to convince me it could possibly be anybody else. That was OKC, Boston, and Cleveland. To me, those three teams lapped the field this year in the NBA. They were that much better than everybody else. The one X factor out there was the Lakers, because, adding this player and what that ultimately was going to look like, and their defense took major strides. Before that LeBron injury late in the year, their defense had taken major strides. They were figuring out how to protect Luca. And then you just have two guys that have an answer for everything on the court offensively, with their scoring, their playmaking, and their IQ. So I thought, I can't rule them out. To me, those other three teams have been so much better than the rest of the league, and you rarely see it to that extent. So Oklahoma City, for me, has been the best team I've seen all year. When they play their best, they are the best team. But look, Boston is obviously right there. And then the Cavs have been great. I just don't know if the Cavs ultimately will be able to get past Boston.
Let me go back to the Lakers situation. It just dawned on me. Here's LeBron, twilight of his career. They don't have draft picks there. I don't know where they are salary cap-wise. You got Luca for one more year. Could you see a scenario where Luca looks around and goes, do I want to stay in this situation if LeBron's not there and you got kind of the group you have and maybe you add something? But is it a foregone conclusion Luca is going to stay in Los Angeles?
No, I definitely could see that scenario. And the main reason for that, he was thrust into it. This isn't a situation where Luca got to free agency and said, "Man, LA is where I want to be. That's where I want to go," like LeBron did. And then now you figure, well, he's going to stay there the rest of his career and finish it out because he chose that at that stage of his career. Luca didn't choose that. Luca was. I'm still not sure Luca's over the shock of being traded. So he was thrust into it, making the most of it. But when it's all said and done, does he totally love playing with LeBron? Who knows? Does LeBron really love playing with him? I don't know that either. I don't know how long that's going to last. When is LeBron going to hang him up? I don't know. But now Luka envisions himself going forward in the Lakers organization with JJ Redick. Who knows how he feels about that? Really, he hasn't had a large enough sample size, and he didn't choose any of it. So when you're forced into a situation, you don't know really internally the conversations he's having, with the people in his life that care about him. So could I envision it? Absolutely, I could envision it. Now, I think there's a possibility because of the organization, what it says on the front, their commitment to try to keep winning all the time. They're always going to try to win, even if they're in the luxury tax. Maybe Luka wants to be that. The next decade, he thinks, hey, I'm a Laker. I'm going to win titles here. But I don't know that. I don't think it's out of the question. He would look around and say, man, this isn't what I chose. What else is out there?
Unless Nico Harrison goes to another team and then you have another trade with Nico Harrison as the GM that you can fleece them. Tell us about the All City podcast that you have.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it, man. We're finishing our second year here. Do it with Adam Morez, who's a Denver sports personality, knows the Nuggets inside and out, but knows the entire league. 4 days a week, and it's real basketball talk like this, like we're having right now. It's not hot take-ish. It's what happened in the game last night. And we're going to break it down, make you smarter. What's coming up tonight? Looking ahead, cover the entire league, especially now the playoffs are great. So it's 4 days a week. Find it on YouTube, man. All City NBA podcast or anywhere you get your podcast. I'm very proud of what it's become, and I think if you're a real basketball person, this is where you want to go to get the breakdowns.
It's All City NBA podcast on YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast. Do you think I would have beaten Greg Anthony that day in Detroit shooting three-pointers when we were on the floor?
So in this shooting competition, Dan, you got a pretty good stroke. Maybe you'd have a shot, but I know this. If you decided to go one-on-one, I think Greg's locking you up.
Oh, no, I agree with that. I'm just saying shooting threes, Greg Anthony is a 15 to 18-footer.
Let me ask you a question. You always ask about shooting. Let me ask you, do you shoot anymore? Like, do you actually go to a court and shoot?
It's too easy. I think like after a while you get bored.
I used to shoot a lot, man. I'm at the point now. I shoot heavily leading up to my basketball camp, so I don't embarrass myself in front of those kids. But I don't have the time for it anymore. My knees hurt a little bit more than they used to, so it's harder for me too. But I do know this: if you gave me a week to prepare for anything, I'm still going to go and I'll put on a good show for you.
So if I gave you a week to prepare for Steph Curry,
for Steph Curry, I need more than a week. You got to give me about 3 months.
Okay,
3 months.
All right,
because I might need if I'm taking on a guy like that, I don't want to get humiliated. I'm probably going to need to go maybe get some injections in my knee first. Let's start there.
Okay.
So I have comfort, and then the rhythm of repetition. Yeah, you give me 6 days a week shooting for a couple of months. I'll take my shot against anybody.
What about Ray Allen? You against Ray Allen right now? 3-point shooting contest.
Man, that's a great one. Ray looks like the kind of guy that still plays pickup ball. Like he's probably still in rhythm, but I would need less time to take him on. But still, I always thought Ray Allen for like a decade until the Curry came into the league. I thought Ray Allen was the best shooter on the planet for about 10 years, probably.
So Steph would probably have you.
I mean, if you don't defer to him, I think now you're coming off sounding a little bit kooky.
How about you against Caitlin Clark?
I'd be confident in that. I'd be confident in that matchup.
Okay. What if it's from 30 feet?
She'd probably get me there now because she's she's regularly taking them from that distance. If I go and shoot now and I'm trying to impress you, I'm going to be towed up right at the line. I used to be out there in that range. I'd go to, I used to go around and visit different camps, spoke at, high school recruiting camps like that, and do shooting demonstrations. And I'd be out where you're talking about and not miss. Like, go 20 minutes and you're just making everything. Now you're much closer to that line than you used to be. In fact, you're right on the line. It's an Al Horford 3.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
Good to talk to you again, Legs. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, man.
Tim Legler won the three-point shooting contest. Yeah, we were in Detroit. I think it was NBA Finals. And Legs came out, and he said, I'll beat you left-handed. And it's one of the worst things that has ever been said to me. One of the meanest things ever. I'll beat you left-handed from three-point range. And I said, I'll crush you. And then Greg Anthony comes out, and he starts shooting jumpers. And we were shooting threes, and he's shooting like 15, 18-footers. I said, come out here where the grown-ups are. And I would have dusted him off from three-point range. Legler, I would have lost. Not left-handed. He would not have beaten me left-handed. Right-handed, he would have.